This is the Captain Ready Leadership Program, and by the end of today's call, you're going to know exactly how to turn a talented player into a leader who the whole team will follow before your season starts. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed that sometimes the captain that gets chosen is because they are the best player on the team, or maybe they get along with everybody. But just because they have those natural abilities, sometimes they end up disappointing you as a coach or aren't able to have those full leadership qualities and be able to lead because they never really got trained and they don't know how to do it. So one of the things that I realized in this leadership gap was when Tina Matera, she gave me a phone call and said, there's a disconnect between coach expectations and what the captains and the players are able to do right now. So could you please come and talk to our team and help us with how to help be a better teammate, improve the captain's communication. They just don't know what to say in certain situations. And so I started meeting with Tufts University over the season to help them with the captains with their unique identity, because the truth is when they came in, they're like, this is probably just a rebuilding year. That was the assumption that they had. And they were comparing the team from the year before where they went all the way to the Final Four, lost in the championship game. And they thought, we don't have the same people as we did last year. And so they had to let go of some of the perfectionism and really understand, as for the captains, this is what it means to be a strong leader. We do need to address the conflict, and we can't compare ourselves to last season. And so as we work through the season, they became national champions, and it wasn't easy. It was a lot of work. And so what I realized, this leadership gap was so key to for them being the 2025 Natty champs. And that led me to think, well, are there other teams that are really struggling with this? Because I do a lot of team training, and the captain leadership really stood out as a missing piece. So I'm Robyn Kenney, and I played on the U.S. national field hockey team. I'm a silver medalist, and I also coached at Virginia Wesleyan College and the Ohio State University. And now I'm full-time certified mental performance coach, and I'm leading humans towards excellence. And this is my passion, because when I was on the US team, I had performance anxiety and it was really hard. And so I started teaching people that. And I was also the captain on the Boston University field hockey team. And I was one of those players that was, the best player, MVP, All-American, but I didn't know how to build the relationships. And so, if you think about one of your players who they're so competitive and super strong, but they might end up, if they don't know how to build the relationships and have that communication, they could come across as obnoxious and aggressive. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today are going to help you realize what are the skills that they need to have for that. So I want to introduce to you our other captain mentors. What people, the way leadership training has been going in the past, it's changed now. And so we have a whole new model. So if you stick around till the end, I'll explain why this model is better and how it works much better than the typical traditional leadership training. So first I want to introduce Celia Nocivelli, who was the captain on the Boston University field hockey team last year, and she helped lead her team to the Patriot League as a conference champion. So Celia, do you want to say hi?
Hi everyone, I'm Celia. Like Robyn said, I was on the BU field hockey team. We won the Patriot League this fall, which was super exciting. And I've been interning with Robyn for almost a year now, creating this panel and this program. So yeah, super excited to be here tonight and kind of talk about what we've learned in this whole experience.
Thanks, Celia. Yeah, and when I talked to Celia about this, I was it really resonated with her, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to introduce our other captain mentor, who is Emma Albee. She's the captain at Shippensburg University. It was actually second year being a captain in her fifth year, and she was a Division II national champion. And Emma, do you want to say hi?
Hi everyone. Like Robyn said, I played at Shippensburg for 5 years. I won two national championships and two Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference championships, which is super cool. And I'm really excited to be a part of this program and to share, my experiences through being a captain at a really high level school that was competing for championships every year. So I think learning a lot from others' experiences will also help future captains.
Definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, I'm really excited that you're here and to get your experience. And we interview every single captain that becomes a mentor. And so, Celia, tell me, what is it that drew you to the being an intern for this Captain Ready Leadership Program? And tell me more about that.
Yeah, so when Robyn reached out to me, it was after my season had ended, and when she was explaining her hopes for this program, it really resonated with me because I experienced the exact same things as a captain. When I first got voted as a captain in my spring season, I was so excited and completely honored, and I knew a little bit of what the role entailed, but I didn't know to the full extent, and no one really kind of prepared me or told me what to expect or how to have difficult conversations or anything challenging like that. So as those things came up, it was really, really difficult for me to navigate, and I had no one to reach out to. I didn't really have anyone to look up to. I felt kind of alone in navigating those conversations and what to do and just always trying to find the right answer. So I felt really lost, and it was really, really difficult for me. And I didn't really gain any confidence until almost end of October, early November when my season was practically over. I feel like at that point I really hit my stride and understood the captain role and how to set boundaries and how to hold my teammates accountable. But like I said, it didn't happen. It didn't click until my season was practically over. So I really wish that I knew these skills going into my season. So I was really confident and able to lead as a captain all throughout my entire season, not just to the very end.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that because, and so when I talked to Celia about that, the question that came to mind was, well, are other captains feeling this way? Are there other situations, or is this common? And so what we did is we talked to actually 30 teams, 30 college coaches, and 30 captains and 10 college coaches. And so what we wanted to share with you guys today is what we learned from all of that and how we developed our program. So uh, here is some of the information that I think is really important for you guys to know. What I promised you would hear about is what are the top three things that if captains knew how to do this, then their whole entire team will follow their leader, and really you will get the best out of your season. Accountability conversations. This is probably one of the hardest things that captains are going to do. And when we talk to the captains, this is the number one challenge that they had. And the best way to really have these accountability conversations is to practice because you could talk about all day long, well, I would do this, I would do that, but when you're in a room and someone is asking you or telling you like I don't want to stay home, I want to go party, or they're gossiping, things like that, and you really need to toe the line for the standard, it's important to practice it. And so what we did in our the last cohort, we just had a July cohort, and so this is Anna from Penn State University, Harrisburg. We did a one-on-one with her, and this is what she said after we talked about gossiping and the energy vampires in the room. And she said, it was really hard and uncomfortable. She gets really uncomfortable when her teammates are talking badly about others, and she would typically ignore it. But she was practicing, I think she was practicing with Celia, and she realized that it gave her more confidence to stand up. And we gave her some tools that she could use so she could feel more confident and have those conversations because she admitted that they're happening. She just was kind of ignoring it. And the last thing you want is your captain to ignore these kind of conversations. So let me ask you, um, Emma, what were some of the hard conversations that you had to have? Because you told me winning a national championship was like the most important thing to you.
I think a big factor was, everyone's social lives, and everyone goes to college and wants to have a social life, but you really have to make hockey a priority, especially at the level we were playing at. We knew every season, we talked about it every season, that we were going to be competing for championships. That was the standard. And so it was really difficult to hold teammates and even myself at points like accountable and say, listen, we all signed up to be at this program to compete for championships, and hockey needs to be the priority. So holding teammates accountable in that way, I think by the end they were fully kind of understanding it. They weren't thinking, oh, well, we couldn't go out for Halloween. Like they weren't thinking that when we were holding a trophy above our head. So it was rewarding. But holding people accountable is hard in any atmosphere, but especially in an atmosphere where you're playing with, 30 best friends or 30 really close people in your lives. So it is difficult, but as a captain, it's one of the most important things that you have to do. And kind of like Robyn said, like you just got to practice it because everyone's looking at you to hold kind of everyone accountable as a captain.
Yes, thank you. And that's exactly the message that the captains in our program are going to get, and they're going to realize how important it is. And you got results. I mean, it was, I'm sure it was hard. It was um so tell me, Celia, why don't you tell me now, what is it? Tell me about the breakout session that you had. And can you tell me more about what you heard from the captains on the accountability conversations?
Yeah, so the accountability conversations, I think exactly what Robyn was saying. It's a lot easier said than done. A lot of times captains are like, oh yeah, I would tell my friend to, stop bringing bad energy or tell this person to stop talking poorly about someone else. But when you're in those situations, it's actually a lot harder. So we gave the captains pretty niche scenarios, and all of them right away were like, oh, actually, when I think about it, that makes me really uncomfortable, and I have no idea what I would say. So this conversation with Anna, I was talking to her about, okay, what happens if there's someone on your team who's not really in the group, or maybe they're just a little bit different or don't get along with everyone else, and the whole team is together and people are making jokes about it or kind of like talking poorly about her. Obviously, a situation we don't want, but unfortunately, those conversations and those situations do come up. So I was just asking Anna, like, how would you step up in front of everyone on your team and tell the whole team, even like your best friends who are engaging in this conversation, that that's not okay, that's not our standard. So it was really interesting to hear that, she didn't know what to say, and it did make her feel uncomfortable. And basically kind of what we talked through is just empowering her to stand up and just use her voice and kind of shift the light and say, okay, well, she's really nice or she's really funny, or kind of put yourself into her shoes and her perspective. So just really empowering her and giving her that confidence to be that one person that stands up. Um, and another situation we really talked through with accountability is if someone comes in maybe right before like a run test and they are complaining about the run test, especially with preseason coming up. Maybe your best friend comes in the locker room and is just complaining, I don't want to do this, I don't want to run this, why do we have to do this? Like, this sucks. And everyone's just really kind of bringing that bad energy, and maybe you don't want to do it as well. Like, no one really wants to do a run test, no one gets super excited for that. So, how do you shift the mindset? How do you be the person that just says, hey guys, like we're all in this together. Let's get through this. Once we do this, we can play hockey and it's gonna make us fitter, faster, stronger, all those things. So really just giving the captains the knowledge and empowering them to have those conversations and really shift the mindset, really helped them out and just kind of gave them a new perspective on how they actually would handle those situations. So yeah, it was really beneficial for them and they really, really enjoyed those conversations. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Celia. And what the reason why um, we are doing it this way is because the message from Celia and Emma, who just graduated, um, is it's going to resonate like very strongly. And these are the conversations that you never hear about because they're in the locker room, which and they're most of the time, a lot most of the time off the field drama or off the field negativity, it does come onto the field, into practice and things like that, and you're not aware of them. And so the captains are really doing a lot of maintenance and a lot of these having these conversations. And if they don't feel confident enough, then they're going to let it fester. And then all of a sudden you're seeing it on the field, like what's going on. So I wanted to teach you this one framework. I created it for our Captain Ready leadership, and I wanted to share it with you today. And it's called the Positive Vibes Framework. And so VIBES stands for, it's an acronym that stands for how to help your players with accountability. So feel free to take this and copy it and use it when you're having conversations with your captains. And it's very important when you do have your captains meeting, hopefully you do have a captains meeting or a leadership meeting, that you tell them and remind them, listen, these accountability conversations are going to happen. Out of all of the 30 different schools I've talked to, not one has said that they've never had an accountability conversation or had to have, or it just didn't happen. It's going to happen. And so this gets you ready for that. So number one, the V in vibes is when someone is coming, let's say someone is coming with is low energy on the field. We'll just make it very simple, and they're just not putting in the work. And so the idea here is you want to start the conversation with how the captain wants to come up to the person. Let's call her Sarah. So the captain's coming up to Sarah, and the first thing before she comes up to Sarah to talk to her about what the below the standard behavior is, she wants to think to herself, well, how do I value Sarah? What is the value that Sarah brings to the team? Because she wants to be able to show that she cares and that Sarah is a valuable member of the team. And when she does talk to Sarah, it's important to have her validate anything that Sarah has to say as the reason why she's feeling the certain way. And so coming with knowing the value of that player and validating and being ready to validate their feelings, like I hear you, I understand, listening to what they have to say is the first step in the positive vibes framework. Then the next thing that they want to think about is that these conversations are better when they're individual. So, I do a lot of mindset training for college athletes who are not captains as well. And I hear, sometimes the captains will like yell in the middle of practice, like, come on, where were you? Right. And so that definitely doesn't help anybody's confidence and help them play better. So in this situation, Sarah isn't having that positive energy. She has very low energy, and so the idea is like immediately after you notice this happening after practice or at the water cooler, whatever. You have an individual one-on-one conversation. It's so much more meaningful if it's a one-on-one conversation with the captain and your one of the teammates. Then the next part of this accountability conversation, you want the captain to think big picture and how will this benefit the team. And all of this is helping her frame in her mind the best way to have these accountability conversations. So if she comes to a player and talks about why she's valued, she has that individual conversation, she immediately addresses it so it doesn't get to a point where It's just been a reoccurring, and she talks about why it's so important for the team. Then that really helps Sarah understand that she needs to think about how to change her behavior. And so before the captain comes to solutions like, hey, I think you're really tired. Like, can you just get some more sleep? That that might put somebody off because you don't really understand their situation. So the next thing that they want to do is they want to explore options. And the best way for a captain to explore an option is to ask questions. Hey, so what is it about why are you what is it about you being tired that you think is contributing to this? Like, I notice that you're tired. I hear you that school's hard, things are stressful, you're not getting enough sleep. We really need you. You're a really valuable part of the team, and you really need to be sincere about that. So the captain needs to really think about what value they bring, and like, well, what do you think could be helpful so that you aren't so tired and you're not having this low energy? And so you want to explore those solutions together and the options. And so maybe she needs some study time. Maybe she needs an alarm clock. Who knows? But she needs something, and you want her to provide it to the captain first before they then solve the problem. So the problem solving should be done together, not at the person. So if your captain follows this positive vibes framework, this is a great way for your captain to feel like they have some type of structure when they're having the conversation. Obviously, they want to be as authentic as possible, but this is a great way to bring the team along when something isn't happening at the standard that you want, so that you can be as successful as possible. One of the examples that we used for the positive vibes framework, so Captain Ready isn't just about talking at people. That's old leadership style. What we do is we have the interaction is the best part of this whole entire program. And so what Kenzie talked about from Roger Williams University is the role playing. The role playing really helped her realize in this instance, I'll back up for a second. In this instance, she did a role play with one of the mentor captains about gossip, and something people were being negative in the locker room. And so what she said is that the role playing really helped her realize that she can't look the other way, and that when the teammates are being negative, and that's what she used to do. But now that she's a captain, even though she's going to be a junior, she's realizing that setting that standard early, right away, is going to help her be clear on what the expectations are and what people will stand for and what they won't. So I think that was great for us to know how helpful the role playing was for her. So before we move to imposter syndrome, I wanted to ask Celia. Celia, tell us about a story that you have about having to keep people accountable as well, because I think this is a very powerful story. A lot of the captains are going to have to stand up to their best friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, this was a really uncomfortable and pretty awkward situation that I was put into. So my best friend on the team, she was also my roommate. She was just disagreeing with the coach on a lot of things, and this whole thing was kind of built up, this tension. And then for one game, it kind of just all unraveled and kind of snapped, and they were kind of getting in a heated conversation on the sidelines. And it was my job to kind of turn everyone away and distract everyone, because that's not obviously the standard that we set on our team. You can't, if you have a disagreement with the coach, that's okay, but that needs to be a private conversation. That can't be in front of everyone. It was distracting all of us from the game, but of course the coach as well when we need her to be coaching us. So it was just really not what we stand for. It was not part of our standards at all. So then I had to have a conversation with her, of course. What I found was really beneficial was coming at her in a sense of, this isn't from the coaches. The coaches didn't ask me to have this conversation. This is a one-on-one conversation with me and you. It was just really hard, like I said, because I was so close with her, and I didn't want her to feel like I was talking down to her or this was gonna ruin our friendship or I was mad at her. I really valued our friendship, so I kind of did have to like really tread lightly in the situation. So I just explained to her this is coming from me, not anybody else. At the same time, this is also coming from the benefit of the group as a whole. If everyone else on the team sees another senior yelling at the coach and saying these disrespectful things, this is going to make everyone else think that this is okay. So that was really the big two things that I emphasized. This is coming from me, and then also your standard is setting the tone for everyone else. And then at the same time, I also made sure to validate, like the V says, her opinions and her feelings. I led with empathy and make sure that she understood, hey, I know it's really frustrating. I know where you're coming from. I definitely understand why that was annoying or everything you've been going through. Your feelings are valid, and I do understand. And if you want to talk to anyone, you can talk to me, or if you want to talk to the coach, I would be more than happy to also come with you in that conversation. So I think just really the biggest thing was offering support right from the start, and then also coming up with a solution and kind of making her realize how much her actions really impact the team. She wasn't sure, she didn't know that that everyone was really watching and she wasn't setting the standard high. So that was definitely a really great experience that I had, and I definitely learned a lot from it. So yeah, I think this whole vibes kind of sets that up perfectly.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and sometimes when people are in their head and like upset with a situation, they get into a victim or villain mode, and so they're not able to really they're not realizing what they're doing is impacting everyone else. And so that's the captain's role, is to really give them that bigger picture, solve the problem together and support them when they need it. That's great. The next thing is, and then Anna, I'm sorry, and then Emma, I'm going to ask you a question. But now that we talked about accountability conversations and how we're teaching your captains to have them, and they get to practice and get that experience. Now I want to talk about something that people just don't realize. This is imposter syndrome. This is probably the most common issue that athletes feel. And what it is, it's a very well documented phenomenon that successful women do not feel that they deserve their accomplishments. And the reason why is because they have these flawed beliefs about their self-worth and failure. And what happens is if imposter syndrome isn't understood, or people don't, I mean, perfectionism is one of those things. I think I had imposter syndrome. I didn't even realize it. And so self-awareness is one of the big tenets of this program, and helping people I'm going to help you spot it, potentially on your team for your leaders. So the reason why having flawed self-worth beliefs and not wanting to fail is important as a captain is because you don't want them to worry about if people are not going to like them. What if she doesn't like me? What if she gets mad at me? And that's, I'm sure people have heard that before. Or maybe they did something really well, they've worked really hard, and they don't even give themselves credit of, oh, well, I just got lucky. It was really nothing. And so that is another sign if you hear people say that to them, to you or to themselves. Or sometimes imposter syndrome shows up when people try to be like somebody else. I mean, obviously you can model excellence, but if you feel like what you're doing isn't enough and you have to be like this other person, then that is another sign. If you're hearing people say, well, should I do it like her? I can't make a mistake. It has to be perfect. Those are all signs of imposter syndrome. And there was one conversation I had with one of our captain mentors who went to CNU, Emily Evans, and she has this beautiful quote. Her coach said, Emily, I don't want you to be a leader like so and so. I want you to be you. And she needed to hear that. And so when you're talking to your captains over the season or even in the beginning, make sure that you tell them that they do deserve the role. It's helpful. Because the top number one thing, that advice that captains, when we ask them in our 40 interviews, is what advice would you give to a future captain? They said, tell them that they do deserve to be in this role. there's going to be times they feel overwhelmed. They're doubting their leadership skills, if they really are up to this task. And so this question is something that will be at top of mind. So I want to turn it over to Emma, because Emma is a goalie for Shippensburg, or was a goalie for Shippensburg, and um, it's going to be really important when you get scored on. Every team is going to have a goal against them, right? And so the way that you respond to that is definitely going to dictate the future of the game. And so I would love, Emma, for you to talk about, how did you go from how you responded your first year as a captain to your second year as a captain, and how that helped the team.
Yeah, so like being a goalie is definitely hard when you get scored on, no matter if you're a captain or not. But in that captain role, it's extremely difficult because when you get scored on, the captain's looked at to kind of say something to encourage the team, or, bring them together. And that's where the captain usually has to speak up. So in my first year when I was a captain, it was really hard for me to separate the like, I'm so angry, this is my fault, the goal went in, to trying to motivate my team after we got scored on, because it wasn't helpful when I just yelled or said, like, you need to do this better, because that wouldn't have happened. That goal wouldn't have gone in if we were all on our girls. I think instead I realized that because my teammates didn't take it well, saying, negative things, or just like putting my anger out onto others wasn't helpful. And you can kind of tell by, their reactions to that and what happened after the goal. But then this past season, I really kind of switched the mentality and was like, okay, so how can I be more motivating after a goal, even though this is really hard for me? So I would just be like, you know, this happens, goals happen. Like, we can't be shocked by that. We can't be upset by that, but we need to do what we can and what we know how to do to get the ball up the field and make something happen. And a lot of times we would get scored on, and then within 2 minutes we would be in the attacking um, part of the field, getting scoring opportunities or, penalty corners. And that was kind of a really great thing. So yeah, it definitely was hard, especially because everyone has their own feelings after a goal, but especially the goalie. Like, even if it's not your fault, you blame yourself. That's just kind of how it goes. But being able to separate, like, not portraying my emotions onto the team during those times was so important and very vital in how, successful we were as a team this past year.
Yes, I mean it's vital. It's vital to have that emotional control. And so, in one of our sessions, we talk about self-care and emotional control, and how I remember, Emma, you said, you realize taking that deep breath and getting your composure and then addressing the team made all the difference. And so I think that's going to be reminding people of that, and having them practice and giving them some tools is definitely something that the getting your team captain ready is going to be important. So this is how you can spot, as a coach, imposter syndrome, because the thing is that a lot of times the captains are not going to go out and tell you, like, listen, coach, I don't think I really deserve this role. They're quietly wondering that themselves. And so you want to be able to identify this so that you can bolster their confidence and give them support. So one of the things that think about is if they're keeping a low profile, if they sound like they're afraid to fail, they're avoiding to ask for help. Those are all signs of imposter syndrome. Needing to feel like everything is perfect, like if something doesn't go right and they are like obsessively saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it that way, and like beating themselves up because something wasn't done right, then that's another sign. And then sometimes the captains feel like I'm now a leader and I need to act like the stereotypical type of leader where I'm a dominant, extreme influencer, and all of a sudden their personality changes. And what we talk about in the very first session of the Captain Ready Leadership Program is you want to tap into your strengths. You want to be authentic to yourself and not try to be somebody else, because you're going to be able to resonate. And even Greta Hinkey from Northwestern, who we interviewed, talked about how she was able to actually be herself, the calm one on the team, instead of the one that was as dominant. And she said certain people like were drawn to her. So there are going to be different players drawn to different captains on the team, and the being able to have those complementary roles is very important. So the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of, so we talked about accountability conversations, the positive vibes framework. We talked about imposter syndrome and trying to be perfect. And then and if you're perfect and you have all these expectations and you're not able to actually have that emotional control, now it's about minimizing overwhelm. And the truth is, some of these, like the captains, get easily overwhelmed with all of the things that are necessary. And so one person should not feel like they have to do it all. And that is another sign of imposter syndrome, feeling like you have to do it all. And so understanding, what is my strength? Am I the detail-oriented one? Am I the big picture one? Am I the one that's going to be, dominant on the field? Am I the one in the back in maybe not in the spotlight, but I'm helping with harmony on the team? There's a lot of different, there's 4 main different leadership role types, and your captains need to know which ones they are. And that's the thing that they learn about, is they explore and they learn, well, what is my leadership strength and how does that complement other people, so that you can have a leadership group team that really is a very well oiled machine when it comes to the leadership. And so you don't have to worry about that as much. Self-care and boundaries. So that was one thing that we talked about with the cohort in July. And this is something that Claire from Tufts University talked about. Tufts is definitely loves to work on their leadership after the last year, and are now doing it earlier. And so Claire said that what we talked about was, you as a captain, you want to be helpful, but you also need to be able to protect your own sleep and your own needs, and not always be on for everybody. And so Claire we talked about in the breakout sessions, we said, okay, someone's coming to you really late at night and they're really upset with their playing time, and you are spent. You have a test the next day. What do? Do you stay up all night and talk to them, or do you set some boundaries? And so what Claire said after the breakout session is, she's the first person to drop everything to help people. And during that today, I learned a strategy to show I care about my teammates and I can set boundaries. Without this, it would have taken me a while to figure this out. And so this was her aha moment. She was like, oh, I really do have to make sure that I can show up. The last thing you want as a coach is that your captain is going all out and helping everybody else, and then the weight of the stress of managing the team is now affecting the way that they're playing. So this is definitely a very big, important part of the being a great leader, is setting those boundaries and showing that you care at the same time. The next thing I wanted to talk about is expectations, and the expectations that you have as a coach, and explaining what your communication style is. So the last thing that you want to do is assume they're the best player, they're showing natural leadership, I think they got it, they can figure it out. Having a leadership team meeting is extremely important. And I'm going to ask Emma in a second about how she was able to lead from going from one uh, type of coaching style to another one. Because if you guys read my emails about Emma, I was so impressed when we had our interview, and she's going to share the story with you now about how she was able to, because of her strong leadership, how she was able to navigate a different type of coaching staff her in her 5th year.
Yeah, so I have always been kind of an outgoing, outspoken leader person. Just that's who I have been my entire life. So I actually ran for captain my junior year and I didn't get it. But I kind of want to throw this in there that like that helped me kind of realize that you don't need to be a captain to be a leader. And you can still find ways to lead the team differently without actually having that role. And that I think really prepared me for my senior season when I was elected captain. But my senior season, we had one coach who, had been there for a while. So she had developed, the program and everything was kind of set. And it gave us structure and, we all kind of fell into line. And then she decided to leave to pursue another coaching job. And we were really excited for her, but we were kind of left in the dust for a bit without a coach. So, I was the only 5th year returning back to the team. I was also still a captain at that time. So I kind of took it upon myself to, keep the team in line. It wasn't easy. There were days that we all kind of had, lost a little bit of hope, but I had to kind of make sure that the team, still had the same goal in mind. Like we were competing for a championship, no matter who comes in to the head coach role. That was never lost. Our eyes were never lost on that. Just because that was what Ship is known for. Ship has always been known for, competing for championships, making it to the Final Four, winning national championships. That's why I decided to go there. So, that definitely wasn't easy trying to hold the team together. We lost about like 6 or 7 seniors that past season. We had a really small team. We had like 15 maybe in the spring. And then we lost a few. And then we had a coach come in and it was difficult because some girls on the team hadn't even met our new coach until preseason. So it was really important that we all kind of, stuck together, and I helped make sure that the team knew, like, no matter who was coming in, our standards are still set to, the highest, and we set the standards of excellence no matter what they said when they came in. And it was definitely a little bit different, my experiences, just because one coach was there for a while, and she kind of had these set expectations where the coach coming in didn't have all that time to build out and build on, what we had. So we did have to adapt, and we had to learn how to work with a different coach. And yeah, so I think that was a really big growth point for me when I had to step up and lead the team when things were a little bit rocky.
Yeah, thank you. I think at Spotlight, one of the things that I wanted to make a point of when I talked to Emma that I thought was really interesting is that, when you come in, and for you as a coach, when you come in, it's really for preseason, it's about to start, is having a clear expectation of what you want from your leadership. And so all of the Captain Ready leadership players are going to get a checklist. And sometimes it helps for them to come to you and say, "Hey, coach, like how are we going to create a trusting relationship? How often do you want us to be meeting? what is it like when you're having a bad day? Like, what's the best thing that we could do for you? When I'm having a bad day, this is the best thing, coach, that you can do for me. Because when when Celia and I were talking, and some other captains and I were talking, they're like, I'm having a bad day, and the coach didn't realize that what I really needed, because that conversation didn't happen. And so those are the types of expectations. It's not just the logistics, it's also the behavior and how you guys want to interact with each other. And so a checklist will be available for everybody in the program. So these are all of the things that are going to help your leaders lead so the whole team follows. Number one is, younger captains are going to step into the leadership with more experience, because this leadership program, the old leadership style of just talk at you and then you try to implement it on your own, doesn't really work. It is all participatory, and so they'll be able to identify. You want your captains to identify strengths and their blind spots on the leadership team, and there are four main different types of captain or leadership styles that are out there. You could be the dominant leadership style. You'd be the logical creator, where you need a lot of data. You could be the one that is the one that wants harmony, and that person who is the harmonious leader, it's hard for them to have those difficult conversations. You could also, or the fourth one is that you might be the supporter of the team, and you're the one that loves to talk, and you love to have the spotlight, and everybody, you're just always wanting to have these conversations. And so those are the people that really have a lot of external validation that's needed, and they're actually the ones that might have imposter syndrome the most, because they're always needing somebody else to make them feel good. They're very extroverted. And so you want to, all of your leaders need to understand each other's leadership style and their own, and what those blind spots are and the strengths. And then holding your teammates accountable. We talked about those conversations with the Vibe framework. Managing energy in the locker room, you guys, like this, you have no idea the crap that I hear about in the locker room. Like, I have the benefit of not being a coach anymore, because I hear the back room conversations, and sometimes they're just not pretty. And the captains, yeah, I mean, look, you already see the faces right now. Captains need to be ready. They need to have a plan for when this happens, because sometimes the loudest person, who's not a leader, the loudest person could be the most negative person, and it's very hard to tame that. And we all know that energy is contagious. And so those are the conversations that they need to practice and know how to handle as a group. Being proactive with the conflict, setting standards high at the beginning. It's better to set high standards at the beginning, so that everyone knows that this is what's expected. And staying authentic as a leader. There are so many captains that feel like they need to be somebody else, and there's very few that realize that they can be authentic right away. It takes a while. Celia told me it took till October, where she was really feeling like she could lead on her own. And one of the other captains was injured, and so she felt like she had to take her persona on too. And so there's a lot of stress, and like, people just feel like they need to be superwoman, and you being able to explain to them that that's not what you expect, is for them to do everything for everybody, because that prevents burnout, and burnout is real. And the last thing that you want is to be at the end of the season and everybody just wants the season to be over. We want you building that energy and keeping it strong. Is definitely what leaders are supposed to do with that motivation. So this is the way that your leaders will be able to lead, and so that everybody follows them. So what it is there's, on the left-hand side, there's 4 interactive sessions in August. Starting, the deadline to apply is August 14th, and we start on August 17th. So we're going to get lessons from national champions, and I'm even talking with some players on the US team. So we don't have our full roster yet, but you can see on our website the players that are going to be at least in one of the sessions. The communication strategy, because your captains need to be able to be balanced with showing they care, truly caring, and being direct with what's going on, direct and factual. And so we'll talk about this radical candor approach, where you have both and balance both of those. The role playing is going to be great. And so that they can really get real practice. And our captains are not, our captain mentors are not going to be easy on them. They're going to press them and make sure that they really know how to follow up when people are pushing back. The checklist for the season is going to be essential. And so we have a focus group, and they're going to learn all of the things that they need to think about, and they can share it with you. One session with me, I will have one session with every coach to talk about what's your vision and give you some feedback, if you'd like, and help you strategize. One session with me with each captain. And so all of these things, if you look at the 4 leadership trainings, valued at $1,000, and the captain's checklist of $50 value, and the individual sessions just for you as a coach could be, a $500 value, and then an individual session with each captain is $300. If you're working with professionals like myself, this is what I charge. But if you have all 3 players, and if you had that, it's $4,500. But I don't want to do that. I think that's not what I want to provide. I want to provide value to you where you get a lot, for what you're going to be spending for your program. And so instead, one captain is only $500, 2 captains is $750, and 3 captains is $1,000. And you get all of those things that I just talked about, for that really, a third of the cost. And so all you need to do is apply by August 14th. There's actually only 5 more slots, team slots open, because we only want to have 21 athletes at the most. And so this is the QR code for you to sign up and commit to your team if you'd like to. But I do want to open it up for questions as well. If anybody has a question that we can answer with the last couple minutes that we have. So if you have a question, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can put your question in the chat if you'd like, or you can unmute yourself if you have a question about, you have some, great resources at your fingertips at the moment. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, let me ask Celia. I'm going to ask you a question. So, Celia, what is something that you heard in maybe some of the breakout sessions in the last cohort that we just did, in terms of the aha moments maybe that you haven't talked about yet?
hmm I think a lot of it that I remember, like you mentioned, some of the girls talked a lot about realizing they have to set the standard early, and they didn't realize that. Like for one example, in one of my breakout rooms, the one that you were discussing, Robyn, with the captain was interrupted late at night. She said, she would never kind of like normally she would never turn away a captain and that or a friend or a teammate, and that was the same thing as me as well. I never turned anyone away, and then I was completely burnt out. I didn't have time or energy to take care of myself, and you can't lead others if you don't take care of yourself. So I think that was one of the biggest things that we kept hearing over and over again, is how they didn't realize, one, to set the standard as early as the first day of preseason, and then also they weren't really aware of their standards. They didn't have that conversation to say like, hey, what do we do if this person breaks this rule? Or what do we tell the coach and what do we not tell the coach? Or if there's team drama, at what point does the coach get involved? So that was something we really encouraged the captains as well, to really make sure everybody knows the standard, whether that's like you create a rule book or you talk to your coaches and figure out what's above the standard or below the standard, and then make it super, super clear to everyone on the team, what they stand for and what you don't stand for, and what the exact consequences will be that will come with them. So I think that was really, really important to mention to these captains, because a lot of them had never even really thought about that. So that was super beneficial for them to learn and discuss with their other co-captains as well.
Yes, yes, I do remember those conversations with some of the players. And they that is a really good point. And so if you're listening to this right now, ask yourself, do your players know when they need to come to you? And some common situations are obvious, like the serious ones where maybe there's suicidal thoughts that they're hearing, or there's like a major mental health issue. Maybe, I mean, do you want to know if somebody was drinking and they didn't meet the standard, or do you want the captains to handle that and you don't want to know about that? I mean, it really depends on you as a coach, like what you want to know. But if the captains don't know, like there was a situation that we talked about where someone broke the drinking rule and a captain decided to tell the coach instead of addressing the team because she thought that was the right thing to do. No one ever really explained if that was what the consequence was. And then all of a sudden, the whole team ganged up on her and said, "We can't trust you. Like, we think you're a mole for the coach." And so she had to take all season long to rebuild that trust. And it was very hard. And the team suffered for that. And so that's one of the that's a story that we're going to be able to share with your captains, so that they know how important it is to understand what the clear consequences were, because being fair and firm are both extremely important. And certainty is going to help with having that psychological safety that your team needs for them to trust each other. Emma, is there anything else that you wanted to add in terms of your ability to be a complement to the other captains?
Yeah, I think there's like another big thing with when coaches are choosing captains or the team's choosing captains. No one really thinks about this, but how do those captains interact? And not saying that they need to be best friends, but I had two separate situations where when I was in my senior year, my fellow captains were my roommates and like my best friends, which did help. Like we didn't bicker, we didn't argue, we all were on the same page, which was good. But then my grad year, I lived by myself and two captains lived together. Um, and that was really difficult for me because we weren't that close. And so it always kind of felt for me like a 2v1. So like they had their choice and I had mine and there was a disconnect. And I think that's really hard. And it was really hard when, you know, we couldn't say the captains agreed because not all the captains did agree. And that did like kind of bleed into the team, and the team saw that there was a disconnect with the captains group, and you don't really want to have that. And by the end we kind of said like, okay, if we're making a decision as captains, no matter if we don't agree, we tell the team that we made it as captains, um because the team's not going to trust the captains if they're not all on the same page, regardless if they all believe it or not. So I think that's really important, is to take that into consideration. Like, not that you're picking your captains based on their living situations or their friendship, what status, but it was really hard for me this past year to really speak my mind and give my opinions on what I thought the choices we should make as captains, when I knew that I was always going to be kind of on my own with my own opinions.
Wow, that was gold right there, Emma. That was like because I'm talking to coaches live right now. Preseason's happening at Division One, and I'm getting that same question. We have a certain set of captains and or leaders, and which captains do how do we know which ones are the best ones to lead the team? They're so different, and we want to make sure that there is a very good complementary role across the board. And it's hard. It's hard to know how the captains are going to work with each other. And so they get the space to be able to have those maybe there's expectations too. And I'm glad that you guys said it and decided that it was you guys needed to have a united front when you came to your team. And so that's a great message that captains will understand, and coaches can explain to their captains, like, you guys need to be united when you come in and talk to the team about what your decisions are, and not look like it's divided. Um, are there any questions from the group? It looks like we have a good set of people here before we're about to sign off. So is there something burning you want to ask me, or you want to ask our captain mentors? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions, and that's okay. So I'm Robyn Kenney. This is Celia Nocivelli and Emma Albee, and we're really excited for our Captain Ready Leadership Program to start. Deadline is August 14th, and we start on August 17th. It's 5 p.m. For 4 sessions in August. We end by August 30th, so it doesn't really interfere with too much schoolwork. And you can always, this replay will be available, so feel free to share it with your captains, with other coaches, so that they can hear all of the great information to help your captains be leaders that your whole team will follow. So thanks for joining tonight.